Okay, this is where things get fun. Batman, Superman, Public Enemies. This was one that I was looking forward to for a while when it came out, and for a few reasons. Now, the basic premise is this is another instance where you're just going to have to roll with me and stay with me. The basic premise is that the United States has a major economic downturn, so severe that there are lots being rented out for tents for people to stay in. So who comes to save the country but Lex Luthor, supposedly ex criminal mastermind, CEO of LexCorp. He gets he issues a third party bid for presidency. He ends up winning, and he brings the country out of this severe depression. And he does such a good job that crime has dropped and there are no wars. So America has basically become this utopia under Lex Luthor's presidency. Now, on the side, he has recruited a group of superheroes to act as agents of the government. Such superheroes include the likes of Captain Atom, obviously, Power Girl, Katana, Major Force, and who else? Someone else. It may be Black Lightning. I think it's Black Lightning, but he recruits those superheroes, and Superman and Batman are the only ones who think that he is still up to something. So via a misunderstanding, or that's what it's made to look like, Superman and Batman eventually become public enemies. They eventually have to go on the run. Luthor issues a bounty on their heads or on their arrests. So before they know it, they are facing a mosh pit of both villains and other superheroes who want to bring them in. So, as if that premise wasn't crazy enough, on another side note, there is a meteor heading straight for Earth. There is a meteor heading straight for Earth that will destroy all living life on the planet. Oh my god, this movie is crazy. This movie is so crazy. And that's part of its charm. The design, the character designs are crazy. The color scheme is the color scheme is just very, I don't want to say over the top, but very, very colorful. Okay, so one thing that had me excited about this movie was the premise, because the premise alone was enough to get me interested. Batman and Superman going on the run, having this kind of buddy movie. But also, being the nerd that I am, I was looking forward to this movie because of the voice cast. In addition to guys like Xander Berkeley and Allison Mack as Captain Atom and Power Girl, you had Kevin Conroy, Tim Daly, Clancy Brown, and CCH Pounder all reprising their respective roles of Batman, Superman, Lex Luthor, and Amanda Waller from the DC animated universe. And all of them do a fantastic job. The voice acting, like with all of these, is a major highlight of this movie. And the fact that they cast familiar actors in these roles once again allows them to, I think, do more with the character than they've been allowed to do before, because they are more comfortable in these characters now. Guys like Kevin Conroy and Tim Daly are, in the eyes of many fans, they are Batman and Superman. And that's one of the major positives of this movie, is the voice acting is so great all around. The chemistry between Conroy and Daly allows this buddy movie to work. This was either going to sink or swim based on whether or not the dynamic between Batman and Superman worked. And it does. It does, and then some. They not only do they get a bunch of funny lines, but also you believe that they are best friends. You believe every single sarcastic remark that comes out of their mouth. You believe every single character-driven bit of dialogue that they say. Like I said, this is one of the advantages of casting people who are already familiar with these characters. Is that they're more comfortable this time around. And it's a good thing that these two actors have enormous chemistry with each other, because, again, this movie wouldn't work if it were otherwise. Clancy Brown is also awesome as Lex Luthor. I mentioned in a previous video how he's my favorite Lex Luthor. That remains very true here. He not only does he sell the very diplomatic Lex Luthor that would be necessary in convincing the populace of his eligibility for presidency, but also you also buy him as this maniacal mastermind. You also buy him as this very conniving, very powerful businessman who seeks only to further his own agenda. So, yeah, you buy the very intelligent Luthor, you buy the crazy Luthor, and you buy the scary Luthor. All of these Clancy Brown still knows how to convey when playing Lex Luthor. Guys like CCH Pounder, Xander Berkeley, and Allison Mack and LeVar Burton as Black Lightning. Kind of weird casting, but these guys don't really get as much to work with. I mean, the movie primarily centers around Batman, Superman, and Luthor, but the supporting cast does a very good job. They do lend plenty of personality to these characters, and I don't mean to say that the voice actors are doing all the work when the script does nothing. The script is a major part of why this movie works, but it is a crazy script, and you need a very good cast to pull it off. You need very good actors to be able to embody these characters well enough to where you don't feel like the characters are getting lost in the action. And there is a lot of action, but the characters, you actually care about the characters. And even the supporting actors, who are kind of pushed to the back in favor of the whole buddy dynamic between Batman and Superman, they still do a good job. Now I mentioned the dynamic, but I didn't mention the performances. Now, Kevin Conroy, this is well tread over ground at this point when I say this, but in the eyes of many comic book readers, myself included, he is the voice that people hear when they read a Batman comic. When you read Batman, you more than likely you imagine Kevin Conroy's voice coming out. He adds just the right amount of dry humor to the role, while also capturing the inner turmoil perfectly. I still maintain that he is the perfect Batman. His portrayal, which he has done for 22 years at this point, since 1992, is still the definitive version of Batman. Okay, so Tim Daly is Superman. Same deal. Tim Daly has a little bit more competition in terms of on-screen appearances, because Christopher Reeve, I think, was the perfect screen choice for Superman, but Tim Daly he gives Christopher Reeve a run for his money. Not to discredit Christopher Reeve, it's just that they're both so good. Tim Daly, he adds plenty of sarcasm to the Man of Steel, to where you don't get bored by him. He is kind of. You don't get that he's just this big lummox. You don't get that he's just this big muscular dope who goes around saving people just for the heck of it. You do get the sense that this guy knows his way around. Obviously, Tim Daly knows his way around Superman and how to play him. But also, you get the sense that he he does embody the kind of average, everyday man quality that Superman, I think, has to have. But also, you simultaneously buy that he inhabits the power that's necessary in embodying the most powerful being on Earth. So, yeah, Tim Daly is still fantastic as Superman. That about does it for the voice cast. But one of the one of the things about this movie that's very over the top, or comparatively over the top, in comparison to their in comparison to their previous efforts, is the design. This is apparently based on Jeff Loeb's comic book series, and they they do not waste any time replicating his style. The the characters in this movie, not only are there a lot of bright colors in this movie, but every single male character looks like they're on some type of steroids. They have this like six-pack abs and Dwayne Johnson-esque biceps. I mean, I mean, geez. I heard this one term, or I heard this one comparison that I forget who says it, but I've always remember it, and I've always kept it in mind whenever I watch this movie. It's like the character models from the DC animated universe on steroids, and that's very true. These guys are just so cartoonishly muscular, and a lot of their features are very angular, almost kind of like a Gendy Tartakovsky sort of design, but more American, less Japanese, and more less of a Japanese influence, and more. It's kind of like a combination of the modern, almost photorealistic comic book designs of these characters. It's kind of like a mix between that and the old school, like big chinned, classic superhero, like posing with very little detail. It's kind of like a mix between the two. I like it. It's very different. It's very appealing to the eye, and like I said, the colors are very vibrant. They're very bright. The animation flows very smoothly, and yeah, this is a lot of fun. Now, if there aren't issues with it, it's that if you don't like these characters, you're probably not going to have as much fun as I did with this movie, because I really like these characters. I really like the dynamic between the two. If you're unfamiliar with some of the subject material, like I don't know, maybe the origins of these characters, then you might be a little lost. If you're unfamiliar with Superman's conflict with Lex Luthor, you're probably going to be lost. Very little mention is made, if any mention is made, toward the backstories and motivations of these characters. Well, I take that back. You know why they're doing it, but some of it, probably more than it should have, is left to one's common knowledge. It kind of assumes that certain aspects of these characters are common knowledge, like Superman's abilities, Batman's abilities, so on and so forth. And it probably would have made this movie more accessible to the casual viewer if they had defined a lot of the characters' abilities and motivations and so on and so forth a little more clearly. It's not just Batman and Superman; it's everyone. You don't. It doesn't really explain what Captain Atom does. It doesn't really explain what Power Girl does. So yeah, a little bit of a clearer picture of those characters would have helped. Again, it didn't really inhibit my viewing experience because I know these characters, and it's not really as much of a mess as Justice League Crisis on Two Earths, or not Crisis, Justice League New Frontier. But again, it's kind of, it's made. I'm going to try to use percentages. It's made kind of 60% toward fans and 40% to everyone, but mostly towards fans. Another issue, and again, this kind of has to do with the runtime, the characters, the supporting cast. I mentioned how the actors who play the supporting characters aren't really given as much to do, and the primary reason for that is because some of them are kind of underdeveloped. Like Power Girl is probably the most developed because she eventually switches sides, but Captain Atom, he doesn't really get a whole lot to do in terms of dramatic material or personality driven material. Major Force, I have no idea what Major Force's deal is. I have no idea what Black Lightning's deal is, and I have zero clue who or what Katana is. I mean, I know who she is, but I have no idea what she's doing here. Why did she join Luthor's task force? Yeah. So that's kind of an issue, and by extension, the mosh pit of supervillains and superheroes that assail Batman and Superman later on in the film. I get the feeling this was done by intention, because the film does not do anything to explain who these characters are. I mean, Batman and Superman know who they are, and they're like, oh my god, Cheetah! Oh my god, Gorilla Grodd! Oh my god, it's Mr. Freeze! But they don't really explain anything about these characters, and I think that was intentional, because there was no conceivable way that you were going to be able to explain all of these characters without bogging the film down entirely. And these characters basically only show up very briefly as just kind of extras for Batman and Superman to beat up. I mean, Batman and Superman take on this army of supervillains at one point. You may not have any clue who they are, but the film knows that, and it doesn't really try to dwell on any of them. It doesn't require you to have any knowledge of these characters in order to follow what's going on, because they don't really serve any purpose in the story other than to fight Batman and Superman, and they get the job done. So with all those flaws taken into account, I had a really fun time with this movie. This is a very enjoyable flick. It's a very enjoyable action flick. It's a very enjoyable buddy flick. Not quite as accessible as it should be to casual fans, but that's kind of that's kind of been the deal with these animated movies from the beginning, is that they are made more for fans rather than the general audiences, because they are straight to DVD, and if you're a general audience member, you're not going to be as likely to pick up, I don't know, Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox as you are as like a fan. I mean, a fan, of course, he's going to go to Walmart or Best Buy or something and pick up the Flashpoint Paradox, but a casual viewer, not so much. But yeah, this is a very fun movie. There's plenty here for comic book fans. There's plenty here for fans of Batman and Superman. Again, the action scenes are great. The art, the character designs are very inspired. They border on cheesy. They're very cartoonish in nature, but I think that adds to the overall very tongue-in-cheek feel to the movie. And they're not winking at the camera. Batman and Superman are playing it straight, but it's just everything going on around them that's kind of ridiculous. And if you're willing to buy this movie's ridiculousness, then you will probably have a very fun time with this movie. The performances are fantastic. The action scenes are exhilarating. Like I said, the design faithfully follows the comic book, or at least as far as I could tell from what I remember from the comic book. And yeah, even the very far-fetched premise and a lot of the far-fetched developments, they don't really. The movie finds a way to make it seem plausible in the universe that it sets up. It sets up this very hyper reality. So stuff like Luthor building a kryptonite robot suit seems plausible in this particular setting. So yeah, from from this, you've probably already determined whether or not you will like this movie. If you're looking for realism, you will not find it here. That's a certainty. But if you're looking for a damn good time, I recommend this movie.